time I hear the name Toronto now, all I can think of the very beginning of Scott Pilgrim, where they're just like, in the mysterious land of Toronto, Canada, Scott Pilgrim was dating a high schooler.
It's very funny because it's the least mysterious place of our
Right.
What is the most mysterious place in Canada?
Oh, good question. What's the most mysterious
Saskatchewan.
place? No, it's super flat and you can see everything all the time.
There's no mystery there.
There's no mystery there. Interesting. Most mysterious. In my personal experience, I would have to say probably... probably some of the big forests in northern British Columbia.
Oh.
Because that's a lot of where there's like certain cryptid lore.
Oh.
And it's beautiful, it's incredibly lush, but occasionally there will be like fog that rolls in and you get some like cool, creepy vibes.
Sick.
Probably that. There's probably similar vibes out in the Maritimes in the east, but everybody's so nice out there. It's a little bit different. Or maybe if you went like far up north into the territories or into Nunavut, you might be able to get some like interesting kind of like thing vibes.
Well, now we're about to enter something similar, but in the English
countryside.
Yes,
there we go. That's my transition.
Good segue.
Beautiful segue. Welcome to Undercooked Analysis, the show where we are constantly changing the way we do things because, hey, it was a lot easier. We could just grab creepypasta, but creepypasta is dead.
Sad.
That's all right. But we're here to try something interesting today. But first, let me introduce our players. I, of course, am David King. Right next to me is my partner in crime, Kaela.
Hello.
And joining us for the very first time on Undercooked Analysis is our very good and very, well, in my case, very old friend, Nick Jewell.
Hello.
Beelzebub himself.
That's right.
All hail Satan.
All hail Satan.
Hail Satan. To give context to that, every time we have done a devil character or something akin to the devil on Midnight Marinara, it was kind of a fun thing for me to do, to say, hey, what if the devil was always a consistent voice? Was one that just, anytime there was anybody who was even remotely implied to be the devil, it should be the same voice. And sure enough, I decided Nick would be the devil.
I'm eternally grateful.
I should hope so. Because otherwise, eternal damnation is one thing, but, eternal gratitude is another. So that's good. I'm glad. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Finally, actually be able to attend one and be able to do it face-to-face. It's really lovely.
Absolutely. And we're going to try something, like I said, we're going to try something different today. And as Kaela hinted at, we're going to try kind of a TTRPG.
Yeah, a little bit of collaborative storytelling.
Yeah. So about a few weeks ago, thanks to our good friend Sade, he sent us at the time it was a short-run charity where you could donate to help out Palestine, and in return you got, 300 RPGs?
Oh, even more. It was like 600 plus
Goodness.
RPG PDFs. Which we now own. I've only downloaded like a handful of them, but we have access to so many indie games and modules for existing games and just a lot of cool stuff. So it ranges in, I guess maybe you could say it, quote unquote, ranges in quality, but you're getting everything from big RPGs like Wander Home to really small, silly little one-page RPGs like Spin Dash RPG, which is how to do a Sonic the Hedgehog adjacent
hilarious
tabletop role-playing game. I saw that one and thought that was hilarious. And among these, I was trying to see, okay, what kind of fun collaborative narrative games are there? And this one stuck out to me. It's called English Eerie, and we've already kind of gone over the rules, but essentially we're going to be taking turns working together to build a story in the style of like something sinister and happening in the English countryside somewhere, in the style of, say, stories by like Algernon Blackwood and other like English Gothic writers to a degree.
For sure, yeah. Some of the other references were like the original Wicker Man and that sort of thing. So,
Like the interesting thing is these come with this book comes with a bunch of scenarios to kind of springboard what we're doing, and they're all through different eras of history. So there's some going as far back as the 1800s, and there's some that jump into like the 2090s, and then like some that are in modern day. But in our case, we have picked a scenario that we're going to check out that's set in 1907 in Derbyshire, and we're going to be trying a scenario called The Beast on the Moors. So we have no idea where this is going to go, but we figured that we would give you a chance to listen through the process with us and join us as we kind of put together this story. If future Maureen is feeling brave, she might try to attach maybe some spooky music and sound effects to the narrative portions.
Hey.
We'll see what happens.
interesting.
All right, so to begin with, I guess we need to set up our protagonist.
Well, let's read the...
I'll read the prompt for our scenario.
All right, would you... I guess I will... I could read the prompt here.
If you'd like.
Okay. And I apologize, I'm getting over a cold. I've been well gotten over the cold, but the cough has hung on for a while, and it's annoying. All right. The date is 1907. You take on the role of an antiquarian visiting a friend in an old manor house in Derbyshire. Your friend, Lord Christopher Cunningham, is ailing of late and his mind is deteriorating. He raves about sounds on the moors, strange lights, and a shape that he swears he has seen cross his window on a few occasions. You have decided to stay for a week to look after Christopher and help soothe his mind.
Okay, so antiquarian... What was the...
He studies antiques.
Yeah, that makes sense that you would go to an old manor house, especially if the lord of the house is like an old friend. Mm-hmm. Now, I guess one of the things we can figure out is we need to determine who our antiquarian is. We know what their profession is, but we don't know much about them yet. So I'm going to reference the the play sheet here. So we're gonna name and I'll give an occupation. I guess occupation would be antiquarian.
I guess what does our antiquarian deal with?
Oh yeah, well, like where does she work, or where does she, they,
he, them, yeah.
But so interesting occupation. So they're antiquarian. So we need some sort of realm of expertise that they would specialize in.
Okay.
So easy things to kind of touch on would be different types of mythology or different types of like ancient cultures.
Yeah. Would it help if we figured out kind of where Derbyshire is? Like,
sure. I mean, we know it's in England.
Yeah.
Right.
It would be English countryside, I would assume, right?
On a moor.
We're
on a moor somewhere. This is where we pull up Google Maps.
Unfortunately, we are not as...
Okay, this is what happens when you get a bunch of North Americans who have never been to Great Britain.
This has never been across the pond.
I have not, no.
Maybe someday we will.
It's a little above middle England, it seems like. Or it's like in the middle of England. It's a large settlement. It's a ceremonial county in the East Midlands of England.
Nestled between Birmingham and Manchester.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
Very helpful. Do we want to... I mean, this could be a study as an antiquarian. This could be someone... Oh, so the reason our character is visiting the manor is because of...
A friend.
Their friend is ailing. Mm-hmm. I guess so as we play cards, we can kind of determine... Or try to determine what the ailment is, though.
We could do something easy and say that they're... they've... studied Stonehenge and they've looked into sort of old Norman and even pagan sort of things that happened.
Like pre-Empire.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's the angle we wanted to go with.
I like that.
I like it.
Okay.
I think that works. What would you call that? Like pre...
Like, I guess we could...
Pre-Roman.
Pre-Roman.
Ooh. Pre-Roman scholar?
Sure, yeah. Apologies to any actual scholars that know better than we do.
Definitely a historian, basically.
Yeah. But a historian of like ancient antiquity in England specifically.
I'm going to say it's pre-Roman antiquities.
Yeah.
And this is any item, not just like books or...
Yeah, it would just be kind of whatever. Unless we want them to specialize in something, but...
I think they could recognize, like, look at it in pre-Roman book, be like, or pre-Roman artifact, and be like, oh, this could be found here.
Right.
During this, based on the cracks, with...
Do we want our protagonist to be like an antiquity scholar? Probably at a university or something.
Yeah, I would say it probably makes sense.
So would that be the background, like their university professor?
Yeah. I think we could flesh this out a little bit as we go along, but like I think we should note I'm putting as their occupation pre-Roman antiquities scholar, and then I was thinking we name maybe and same in occupation we name them as maybe a
from Oxford.
Ooh.
Why not an Oxford scholar?
You just spelled it Oxford or Oxford.
No, excuse me. The X and the C are right next to each other on the keyboard. All right, so
actually, what is Chris? Our Lord Chris? I know it's Lord Cunningham, but whatever.
Oh yeah,
Lord Christopher Cunningham.
What is because it
a solitary noble who lives alone, save for a few servants in his Derbyshire manor. He is potentially becoming a danger to himself with all these tales of strange goings on.
What if they went to Oxford together? Rich people go to college and shit, right?
That's true. Is our character going to be a little bit older? Like, how old is if he's ailing? I feel like he should be older.
So these are like old childhood friends who like went to boarding school together and then became Oxford scholars and
So
this character stayed at Oxford and eventually became like either an instructor or a professor.
Yeah.
Right, of pre-Roman antiquities.
And that makes sense because Oxford, according to the map, is closer to Stonehenge than Derbyshire.
That makes sense. No, I like this. I guess we should.
Does it say Lord Cunningham's age, or does it just say ailing?
No, that's left to us to kind of determine. I'm going to assume that he's a solitary noble.
Ailing of late.
It's interesting because this prompt is like feels like a good mix of Fall of the House of Usher and Hound of the Baskervilles, which is cool.
Fall of the Hound of Usher.
Nice. Usherville? Yeah.
Usherville.
Good. Yes, good. Excellent.
So we have a older scholar from Oxford. Mm-hmm. Is he actually teaching at Oxford then?
I think he should either, or maybe even we could say, what if depending on our character's age, maybe they have just retired, or maybe they're moving toward retirement. Sure. You know what? Let's say
moving towards retirement. I like that.
Moving towards retirement. Like, in 2 months, I'm finally retired.
That's right.
Yes, they're 3 days from retirement when they receive the letter from Lord Cunningham,
taking a brief sabbatical to the homeland.
What was the retirement age in 1907?
NA, unless you had lots of money.
That's a fair cop. Okay, so we'll say I'm just gonna do this as almost like Cliff Notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Went to school.
So in 1907, jeez, not in the U.S. No. Let's go with
UK.
UK.
The trick with all of these like old lifespan expectations is that they're heavily skewed by the fact that there was so much infancy death.
Yeah.
So the average just gets dragged all the way to the floor almost. But
so in around 1910, 51 was the life expectancy.
Okay.
In the UK or in Britain. So I would say
I mean, people actually lived to be like 80.
Yeah.
So, but we could say like because he's already ailing and his mind is deteriorating, we could say that he's in his like early 60s, maybe.
Yeah, these are men in their early 60s. I like that.
All right, yeah. So I get the impression we're aiming for kind of a distinguished professor, like older professor gentleman as our protagonist.
That certainly seems like the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Early 60s. Went to school with Lord Cunningham at Oxford and eventually hired. Just Cliff Notes it. I was about to say has studied Stonehenge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
I assume like whatever kids he had are probably like now have long left the house now,
Yeah.
married, and he has grandkids and all that.
And we could come up with like as a defining features we could determine and fears we can determine some of what his if he's an older gentleman, he's got a lot of experience. So
Yep.
and then we can also just figure out how much I think after we come up with the characters, then we decide how much spirit and resolve he has. Yeah.
I always struggle with names, of course, because I've been joking about this for a while. Skeffington Licorice is the name that keeps popping up in my head.
Skeffington Licorice.
Goodness.
Is Skeffington the first name?
Yes.
Hilarious.
His first name could be Skeffington. Why not?
It's a joke.
I'm just thinking like it'd be really funny if he and Lord Cunningham meet each other oh, Skeff, it's good to see you, old beast.
Skeff is a pretty good.
That's a really
fun first name, nickname. So Skeffington.
Skeffington.
That could be his surname. Because if they went to school together, then he would call him.
Oh, Skeffy.
Oh, Skeff.
How about
Skeff?
Since we were talking about House of Usher, how about his first name is Roderick?
Roderick Skeffington.
Roderick Skeffington.
Done. Send it. Mail it.
Roderick.
Print.
It's Skeff. Skeff, my old chap.
I love it. You know what? We got to do this proper. This is Professor.
Yes.
Professor Roderick Skeffington.
Incredible. Yes.
Of Oxford U. Okay, I think we got a basis here.
Character.
Okay. Fears.
Oh, okay. So we are supposed to go around and each of us picks a fear for him.
Oh.
So,
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Claustrophobia.
I like that.
That's the fear of
enclosed spaces.
I feel like though, if he's a professor, wouldn't he be used to that?
Well, I mean, doing field work, it could be maybe during an expedition a while ago.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
He was involved in a dig or in a site, and maybe a tunnel collapsed. And,
maybe this is a more recent fear.
Gotcha.
That in his younger years, he was much more cavalier, but then something happened, and now he's much more shy.
Okay,
I like that.
I like that.
Claustrophobia is a good one. All right, do you have one, Kaela?
Oh God.
There was a reference sheet of types of fears if you wanted to.
Yeah, can I look at that?
Yeah, I'll scroll back to that. In the meantime, I think I don't remember what page it was on, but I think it was character building. Mm-hmm. We're still. This is the very first time we've ever played this, so we're definitely okay.
There you go.
Okay, here we go.
Agoraphobia, which is the opposite. Fear of huge open spaces or crowded spaces.
Yes, no, you're correct. Yes,
big open spaces.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a part of me wants to say deaf, but if he's getting near that,
No.
I mean, a part of me is thinking he's a widow or so.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's always a tricky one because technically with death. You know what? I'm gonna go with the most common one that most people are afraid of: heights.
He's afraid of heights. Okay.
Yeah. Heights, that is the one thing, whenever I meet people, I'm like, are you afraid of heights? Most often not, people say yes.
That's fair.
He's afraid of heights. And he has claustrophobia. Third fear of his, I'm gonna say dogs.
Sure, just in general, yeah.
Yeah.
Add to the whole beast thing.
Yeah. He probably has maybe he just has maybe not so much fear. He treats it as a general disdain. He's more of a cat guy, maybe. Yeah. He probably has several cats.
As a kid, he got bit by a dog or something like that.
And he's always brutes, ruffians, all dogs, and
just keeps
what a great beast.
Just keeps a
swings,
distance.
Waves his cane.
Sure, yeah.
Keeps a safe distance.
I'm picturing a guy now with salt and pepper hair, a handlebar mustache, and really thick spectacles now.
Sure.
This guy is almost like a caricature.
Oh,
and he wears a tweed jacket, and
Ooh, defining features: spectacles.
Yeah, that's
actually good. Round glasses. His eyesight is not great.
I like that we have an older, almost comical sounding protagonist here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this is what happens. So yeah, that's my contribution. Round spectacles.
Okay, I approve of that.
So with bad, poor vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you had mentioned a cane. Do you want him to have?
Yeah, let's give him a cane as well. I'm going to give him a. Let's make it a cool cane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he has a cane that he, in a rare bit of vanity, has affixed at the head of a cane a stone, a piece of stone that he acquired on an expedition.
Ooh.
Like maybe one of his first real archaeological digs. He took a piece of like an old chunk of like maybe the like cornerstone or foundation stone of some like pre-Roman structure, and like in a rare, or some artifact in a rare bit of vanity, had it like polished and put on the head of a cane.
Yes.
Maybe he doesn't come from money, but he does not have friends who do. So, stone topped cane.
All right. What?
Yeah, I'm thinking. So I'm currently looking at the history of of what conflicts and wars the UK was involved in the late 1800s. And there was the Boer Wars, which took place between the UK and South Africa, which initially resulted in South Africa becoming its own republic. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking maybe he would have been in his like mid-30s during the first Boer War. So maybe he was conscripted and fought there, or volunteered, or whatever.
Okay, that's cool.
And maybe one of the defining features that he has is something that he brought back. Some sort of artifact that he brought back and carries with him from there.
That could be what he had. I mean...
Well, maybe, yeah, you said that he had something... Yeah, okay, it's because he adorned the cane.
Maybe the cane is... Because maybe the cane is or maybe a stone-topped cane with wood from South Africa. Like it's a South African carved cane.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Do that. And then maybe there's like... No, that might be a bit much. I was going to say that maybe he has like... There's like a diamond embedded in the like... The staff, because there's like blood diamonds and everything.
Yeah. Give him some sinister traits even before that. Like, again, this is a guy... I have a feeling our character is, he's a professor, he's into pre-Roman studies, but this guy is probably...
I mean, he's part of the aristocracy in the early 1900s in the UK.
Or at least
none of them were great.
No, well, at least he's like a learned scholar. If he got into Oxford, he probably comes from a wealthy family.
Yes.
Maybe not as wealthy as Lord Cunningham, who has a hereditary estate, but he's got money. And it's 1907. If he's a veteran, he could have his old military issue. He could have an old military issue.
Like an old
firearm.
Beverly revolver or something like that.
Or like a combat knife or something.
Sure.
Bowie knife.
Yeah, something like that.
Just a thought. Like it's a... I'm not trying to hijack your suggestions.
No, not at all. It's all collaborative. Could you show me the defining features box again?
Utilizing defining features.
I just want to see, because some
it can also be like something as inane as always wears red to carries around their neck. Because they can also be personality details.
Right. Okay. Interesting. What would be good? Maybe one of his defining features is that he's obsessive over cleaning his shoes.
Ooh, I like that.
He likes to likes to have propriety, but he prides himself on like having his wingtips very clean.
I feel
did they wear wingtips in the early 1900s?
Oh God. God, I feel like this
I like that. That's a really cool, like, fastidious detail of
right, because then it kind of speaks to other things about him too, and yeah.
I feel like that's also he's also particular about the shoes he wears too.
Yes, yeah.
I bought the first designed in the early 1900s as a high-heeled dress shoe with wide wingtips, has remained as a fashionable lace-up.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Brogue's wingtips originated in Scotland and Ireland in the 16th century.
Hey! There we go. And
Nice.
This is the newest fashion.
That's right.
Well, this is great because if he's gonna be traipsing around the moors a lot,
he's gonna
trying to
hate that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Actually, now I kind of want to get rid of the heights. Maybe well, that's not a feature.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll give heights instead of dogs. We could do bacteria.
Well, no, because if he's exploring out in...
Yeah.
That's true. But, if he is a professor and he's done archaeological expeditions, a big fear is, like, dealing... Especially if you're in somewhere exotic, like, quote-unquote exotic, like South Africa.
You know what? And probably when he goes to these places, he is prepared and doesn't bring these shoes. But he's going to visit his friend.
Yes.
So he's probably thinking, oh, I'm wearing nice shoes.
Right, he doesn't know he's going to go traipsing around the moors.
No.
So claustrophobia, heights, and dogs, I think, are all good.
I think that's great.
Yeah. I was looking...
I like the idea... Oh, I really do like this, that he is also a military...
Yeah, like the next...
Military
like
guy.
a veteran, yeah.
Yeah. Probably saw some horrible shit in the Boer
Boer War was not nice.
No, it was not.
God, now I feel like death would be a good, like, fear.
He's managed to outlive his... You know what? He's managed to outlive, a lot of his comrades who he probably saw die in battle. He probably saw them succumb to, like, tropical maladies, like tsetse fly and, sleeping sickness. He's lost his wife, presumably. Does he have any kids? He's probably got... His kids and grandkids are all gone.
Yeah.
He might have some grandkids.
That's why I'm thinking he's widowed, so that's why he's like, you know what, why don't I go visit my friend just before I retire? Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It popped into my mind. I don't think we should do this because it is like an additional level of complexity that I think might muddy some things. But the thought to pop into my head being like, what if they were in a tontine?
Oh!
And he's coming back to visit his ailing friend because they're the last two that are left.
Oh my god!
It's like, I don't know, that might be a bit much.
It's another interesting layer, though. I like it. There is something I kind of like about the when was the... Okay, see...
Because maybe they all served in the Boer War and something happened, right?
I want to see the history. Like, when was the tontine, like, scheme...
Oh, sure.
When was it developed?
Yeah,
because it was named after the people involved. Okay, the investment is named after the Neapolitan
1650s.
Jesus. Okay, so there we go. I'm not saying no to this idea. That makes him a little more evil. I think.
I mean, it feels like that's kind of the bent. Like maybe not evil, but like definitely a little selfish.
I think. You know what? How about this? This taunting scheme started years ago, like when they're like in their 20s and shit. And he hasn't forgot, but maybe...
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that maybe it was, like, members of their squad.
Oh, well, it would still be in his 20s.
Yeah,
still.
like 20s and 30s.
Okay, better idea. He didn't go to Oxford. Okay, he didn't go to Oxford with Cunningham. Yeah. They fought together.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So.
But after the war... Then he came back and became a professor.
There we go. Sure. So he fought in the war with Lord Cunningham.
Very good.
And even despite being a lord, that wasn't enough to get him not... Well, maybe Cunningham enlisted because he was like, oh, I'm going to go...
Well, he's a lord. He's going to be an officer,
yes.
And he's going to tell people what to do. Bring prestige to the Cunningham name.
Yeah. Other people in the camaraderie brought them together.
Right.
But a lot of them were also other rich people, and he was not one of them.
Well, actually that'd be kind of wild too, because if he's on the verge of retiring, and it's only them two, if he gets that money, then he's got to retire. He's like, that's why he's planning on retiring, because he's like, oh, I'm very close.
He and Cunningham are the only ones left now. I really like this kind of taunting angle now. So don't knock it till you try it.
I mean,
I do like kind of a scummy guy or character. Actually, okay, remove heights, fear of death because of
claustrophobia, death, and dogs.
Yes,
sure, okay.
Because he is afraid of death, because then that means
he's not a horrible person, but there's definitely like an edge to it because again, so let's see. Revised, he's post-war. He came back, settled down, became a scholar. Definitely not interested in doing anything about war anymore. But that's good. Okay, so I think we have Professor Roderick Skeffington established as our protagonist, the one we're going to be telling the story through the lens of. Mm-hmm. Now we determine how much spirit and how much resolve. Remember, we have 10 points to divide between with a minimum of 3.
Right. So the spirit and resolve that we have, the resolve we can use to increase the dice rolls that we're going to be making to see how well our professor fares against certain challenges.
Yeah, where and spirit.
Spirit is more of a way to track his willingness to go on.
Yeah.
And once that becomes depleted, that would mean that he is ultimately doomed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like he would have more resolve than spirit.
At this point?
I'd say he seems like a pretty tough individual. He's obviously seen a lot of things.
That's true.
But he's getting towards the end of his life, and he's out. He's visiting his good friend Lord Cunningham because he's really hoping that he can hold out that little bit longer.
Yeah.
So that would say that his resolve is quite high, but his spirit is maybe a little bit lower because of that.
Yeah.
Not like extreme, but like
So maybe we could do 6 resolve 4 spirit?
Yeah.
I think that seems good.
Balance?
6 resolve, 4 spirit.
What
we'll use the poker chips for spirit.
Okay.
We actually have physical poker chips. By the way, Nick was nice enough to give us some themed poker chips that were originally from Fallout New Vegas.
That's right.
So our resolve tokens are going to be, our spirit tokens are going to be a poker chip from Ultralux, a poker chip from the Tops, a poker chip from the Atomic Wrangler, and a poker chip from Vault 21.
Very good.
Hell yeah.
Meanwhile, the remaining 6 points will be done in bottle caps.
Bottle caps.
So we'll get those set up.
And those are bottle caps we have collected for a Fallout game, the RPG that we run for
With Alan and Abysme, actually.
Yep. Because we're all New Vegas or Las Vegas, New Vegas.
We're all
Fallout fans.
I mean, people who've listened to this podcast know this. We had a whole episode just talking about the Fallout TV show. I'm going to also put in here, I think we should note that I think if he has a cane, it's not for show. I think that he had an old war wound.
Okay.
And he walks with a pronounced limp.
Yes, that's cool.
So he has poor eyesight and he walks with a limp. And
Yeah.
also he
He didn't come out. I think maybe there's a little bit of resentment. What if Lord Cunningham came out of the war much better than he did? They both survived.
Sure. Yeah.
Other members of their squad did not, and the ones who did have dropped like flies over the years.
Right.
Now the only remaining are them too. And if he's going to retire, he's going to want to make sure. And he hears Cunningham is ailing. Cunningham sends him a letter, says, "Hey, something weird's going on."
Yeah.
And he heads over there.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. So I guess we should start formally now that we have our character ready.
Yeah.
I'm just to make sure I have a note here at the top: Spirit 4 and Resolve 6. And hopefully, if anybody who's listening to this enjoys kind of the vibe of what we're going for here, we can point you in the direction of where to look up English Eerie if you think this sounds cool. So, our protagonist arrives in Derbyshire in 1906. I guess we determine who's playing first. Who wants to be the active?
You've got the deck of cards in your hand. How about you, sir?
All right, then. We're going to deal the first card. The first card is the 4 of Diamonds. Diamonds are...
environment obstructs.
Can reflect the power of the landscape or unfortunate occurrences that aren't directly brought about by other characters. This could be a wild boar on a rampage or simply a thick fog descending over the protagonist. Because this is an obstacle, the active narrator must roll equal to or above the number on the card of a D10 to gain a beneficial outcome. Now, I'm going to look at the scenario for suggestions for environmental obstructions, but I think I have an idea.
Okay.
Maybe we start before, this is the first thing he encounters before he even reaches the house. Like, he's on his way there.
I was thinking something similar.
Yeah.
So we have environmental. A thick fog blocks all vision. A slippery stream blocks your way. The trees appear to whisper to you. An animal trap on the ground, or the trap door is jammed. We're going to have this set in the moorland on the way to.
Is he driving a car then? Well, wait, it's 1907.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's taking the old-fashioned route of a coach.
Sure.
Okay.
He's taking a coach, and the coach driver is. I think let's go with the thick fog. Let's go with the thick fog obstructs vision. So they're not even there when the fog gets so thick he can't even see. The coach comes to a stop, and the driver, the driver's saying the horses are a little leery, and I'm going to say off in the fog. Skeffington, he's looking around, he's wondering what's going on, and he hears a sound. way off in the distance. Like something is moving through the fog. Something big, like a huge animal. He thinks he can hear the sound of something breathing, maybe something snuffling. He's not sure what to make of it. It could be a wild boar or a large dog, which then puts him on edge a little bit, thinking there might be some wild animal out there in the fog. He thinks he might see a shadow or two moving through. Now, question is, let's see. Ultimately, I get to have to say here. I'm going to roll the d10, but he is feeling pretty confident. I'm going to say I'm going to spend... Wait, no, it's only a 4. I'm going to see how he handles this.
Okay.
We need to roll 4 or better to see how he does. 4.
Okay.
So
It meets it beats, right?
yeah, if it meets, it beats. So we have to roll 4 or better. So that's on the card. So the obstruction would keep him from going, but he just kind of holds his own, and he talks to the driver and says, I've had some time in the field, and he actually, like, he doesn't want to get out on the muddy road. He just polished his shoes.
Of course.
So instead, they just kind of wait. They wait it out. But he takes note of the sounds and the movements. He can't tell if it's one creature, one large creature, or maybe several. It seems like it just moves around through the fog. Like it's almost like stalking around. But eventually, the sound moves away, and after a few moments, the fog lifts just enough for the driver to feel confident about moving again.
Okay. Excellent.
And they carry on and eventually arrive at Lord Cunningham's manor. That will be my turn.
Sounds good.
All right.
So then it's your turn.
We move around clockwise.
Yes.
Okay. Second prompt we have
This is
the 5 of diamonds.
Oh,
5
So
this is the second.
another environmental obstacle. Would you like to hold that card in order?
So yeah, we have the option, because we pulled the same suit, that we can set this card aside, and then we can draw a second card, and then the following turn, so it'll be on Kaela, you will then have that prompt instead.
All right.
Okay, so we'll try that. Our next one is the 7 of diamonds. I think it's just meant to be. I think it needs to be another environmental hazard.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
We're gonna have 3 environmental hazards in a row.
Damn.
So 7 of diamonds. So this is, we've established that Lord Cunningham and his driver have arrived at the manor. They're pulling up onto the grounds. We'll say that as the coach is pulling into the long driveway to head up to the actual manor itself, passing through the gates of wrought iron that our professor notes have grown a little overgrown. Mm-hmm. Perhaps a little less well tended than he would have imagined from his old friend Lord Cunningham. That the grounds of the Moors have made the driveway itself quite muddy.
Okay.
Oh no.
It's quite dirty, and the ruts are starting to bleed together. And as he looks ahead, he can see that a number of the trees of the ground have become uprooted, and a couple of them have actually fallen into such disrepair that they've fallen over top of the path forward.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So the coach has to come to a full stop, and the driver, tells our professor that they can actually go no further. The horse can't make it down the road, and that if he wishes to continue, he will need to get out and then make his way on foot.
Oh no.
And of course, this troubles our good professor because of his fastidiousness, but also because of the limp that he has.
That's right.
And he's uncertain of his footing, but he will attempt as best he can to make his way across the grounds to try and approach the doors to the manor, and then give his good friend Lord Cunningham a piece of his mind about the state of his estate. Okay, so we'll do that.
Did you want to spend any resolve for this?
I think with the 7, I should spend at least 1.
All right, that's going to give you +2 to the roll.
Right. Whereas if I was to spend it after, I would only get a +1.
Okay.
So we'll get the +2, and we will see what happens. Rolled an 8, so that's going to total of 10. So that means that as the professor plops down out of the coach, his feet squelching into the mud, he grimaces and frowns down at his feet. But he squares his shoulders, and he steadies his grip on his cane, and is able to continue his way past the blockage, picking his way through the fallen branches of these elm trees, and making his way across the grounds, heading up to the doors of the manor.
Excellent. I'd like to add, if I might, I just think this would be good. Since every 2 cards kind of represents a day, in a broad sense, I would say, I think, if you think this is cool, he reaches the manor. He's met by one of the secondary characters.
So, scroll up.
He's met by one of the staff.
I would say Mr. Douglas would be more
The
like
butler.
Yeah.
So we have Mr. Douglas, who is very tall. I'm gonna just
go ahead,
please.
Very tall, probably a good Nick height.
So six and a bit.
Yeah, 6 and a bit, and very tough looking, very very stoic. He looks at him like the master has been expecting you. You've come, but it's so late in the evening. That he's like, unfortunately, the master is, or the lord is asleep now, and brings to his room. And then I think this is the point where he would look around and see how eerie and how dusty and how everything's kind of fallen, and like, clearly this house is not quite right anymore. And takes note of that, and then begins, and he would get ready for bed, and
I'm sure you would ask questions like, now, what is with the state of your grounds? And then the butler would be probably very standoffish. Very just like, the master is not well. He has been raving about strange things, and he's put the whole staff on edge. He's ordered things to be boarded up and shut away. He hasn't stepped outside in a while. He sent for you, but he will see to you in the morning. Mrs. Bristle is taking care of him right now, but you will need to wait until the morning. And feeling treated very rudely, but he won't say it because he's a proper British gentleman. He goes straight to his room, and he takes the time to write about all the strange happenings and all the obstructions while polishing the mud off his shoes on his own.
I think he was seeing like, but where's the bathroom? Where do I? And then just close.
The butler just closes the door. Yeah, there we go. So Skeffington has not received a very warm welcome. He may be a little perturbed by what he heard on the moors before he even reached the house. The carriage driver seemed a little on edge, a little cagey too. So I think this is a great place for us to...
and just before he goes to bed, he hears that eerie howling again.
He hears an eerie howl way off.
In the distance.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's and as the night falls, he sits by his fire and he thinks about this. He's like, I need to talk to Christopher. So, all right. So it's the next day, and you are now truly the active player.
So I did see like a trapdoor jam, but I kind of like this idea that he wakes up, he gets ready, and so like with the door, I'm thinking, what if he wakes up? It's like it's still a bit early and about to get ready, and he's trying to open the door, but it's locked. Or it feels locked, and he doesn't know why. Ooh. And now he has to find a way to figure out how he's going to open this door. And it's starting to, it's starting to make him nervous, because it's England. The rooms aren't that big.
Right.
Or at least the room he's been put in is not that big.
He's starting, he felt comfortable until the moment that he realized he feels like the door is jammed and he can't leave the room.
Yes.
Is he up on, the second floor of the house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so... mine is a 5. Would that be counted as an environmental obstacle? Would that be?
I think that counts. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, he's been, the butler took him to bed and set him there. He wasn't attended by anyone else, and when he does wake up in the morning, suddenly he can't leave.
Yeah.
That seems...
I'm glad we're playing off the fear of claustrophobia.
Certainly.
It's really good.
Right.
Yes, it would be triggering for that, certainly.
I'm debating, should I use a resolve or...
Totally up to you.
Yeah, it's up to you. You could roll. You can always roll and choose to spend a resolve points afterward.
That's true.
Yeah,
let's choose before or after.
Let's do after, just to be safe. All right, let's see. That's a 4.
Would you like to spend a resolve?
Now we can use a resolve to...
All right,
okay.
So we have 4 resolve left.
I'll be careful. Okay, we got it.
Okay, so what happens?
He bangs on the door and is like, let me out of there, let me, and then as soon as it's opened by, actually scroll up, this is where we meet our,
the third character?
Our third character. This is where we meet our, Mrs. Bristle. who is our serving woman, is like, "Oh dear, I'm so sorry. This happened to you, sir." It's like, sorry, this gets stuck somewhat. He's like, he felt like it was locked, and it's like, oh, don't worry about that. Let me take you down for breakfast. And then she actually begins to talk with him about, like, Lord Cunningham, he's just like, be forewarned, he hasn't been well. He's been saying things like, he has been just raving about strange sounds and lights, and I don't know what's wrong with him. Just be gentle with him, is what she says. And then that's when he meets Lord Cunningham for breakfast.
That's good.
Interesting.
I like that.
That's
Okay,
really cool.
Fantastic. We can add the 5 to the story track.
All right, what's the another diamond?
It's another diamond. Okay. For my turn, I get the 5 of clubs. And
All right.
clubs, if I recall, are a secondary character obstructs. The secondary character obstructs card is another obstacle that must be overcome with a roll equal to the above number of the D10. In this scene, another character actively gets in the way of the protagonist and their goal. This could be through violence, psychological coercion, or warning them away from a location.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so we're going to have to pad this out a bit. We need some story development.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say that at breakfast, he finally gets to see Lord Cunningham, who, greets him warmly, but he looks pretty bad. He's got dark circles under his eyes, like he hasn't been sleeping well. He's got a little bit of a nervous, jitter. They're doing that thing where they sit at far ends of the table, long table in a long dining room, and Christopher is got some soup, which is good for his delicate constitution.
Sure.
And for the
soup for breakfast, nice.
Yeah, just some maybe
broth.
porridge.
Yeah, or something.
Porridge. Yeah, he's they don't have much to give. The serving girl, Miss Enfield, comes through. She's a young lady. Our professor, Skeffington, inquires how he's been feeling and why this is. He's like, "Are you sure this is not some nervous mania?" He's like, and he just keeps saying, "No, it's like what it's some reason the thing out there is." And he says, "The thing out there. I mean, what's the meaning of this? Your grounds are in horrible repair. There were fallen trees in my path." And he says, "The creature uprooted them." And he goes, "The creature. It's like this thing. It's peered in my window at night. It's moved past. I've heard it. It's moving around." And like, "Well, what manner of creature is this?" And he says, "I don't know. It came out of nowhere, but it's big. It's tall enough that it passed my window, and my window is on the second floor of the house." And he goes on about, now what I'm trying to think of is, should he be evoking something connected to the area's past, or is he or is it then more he's like,
I mean, we've established that Professor Skeffington is a student of history, but not necessarily that Lord Cunningham is.
right?
So it could be that maybe he's saying things that sound like delirium, but that our good professor maybe is recognizing as potential hints towards things that could be perceived as myth.
Yeah, there you go. He's hearing about something that moves around, that has, it doesn't say it has a defined shape, but he's seen glowing lights on the moors that he thinks are maybe the creature's eyes.
Right.
He's seen a dark shape pass his window, but again, the window's on the second floor, and he's heard something moving and snuffling around. And again, the trees fell, and now he's equating those to the creature knocking them over.
Right.
He says, "I can't leave the house. I'm in here. I have to stay in here." And the professor starts to ask, "Well, has anything happened recently that would have provoked such a creature?" Kind of humoring him,
Sure.
but not really thinking this is all a mania. He notices that Miss Enfield, who has been just kind of serving them, has been kind of hovering in the background, almost seeming to watch the whole situation go down. But while they make eye contact for a moment while Christopher Lord Cunningham is preparing. But suddenly, Mrs. Bristle comes in and just shoos her away and sends her off.
Interesting.
So Lord Cunningham, he can't think of anything specific that would have caused this. But now the professor is intrigued, and he says, "Well, there must have been something." He says, "I think it's something very old and something very ancient. At least that's what I believe it is. That's why I summoned you. I want you know a lot about, these strange, the phenomena, and I hope there was something in your knowledge that could help. I know you have it in your capabilities. And he says, all right, well, I can look around the grounds, I suppose, but I'm not a zoologist. I don't know much about creatures, but I suppose I could find out if there's anything that could have provoked it. And he's still maybe leaning on the fence and saying, well, my friend is going insane.
Right.
Later that afternoon, which is still gloomy but not as foggy as yesterday, he actually goes wandering the manor grounds. And he goes to look at the trees to see if they did indeed fall over because they were uprooted. I think as he's looking at them, he hears a whisper from nearby. He looks over and he sees Miss Enfield, and she gestures for him to come closer and tells him there's an old well out on the moor connected to an old estate that there's nothing but foundations, but the well is still there. Go check there. Before he can, ask more, Mr. Douglas comes around the corner and just glares at her, and she takes off. He waits for Mr. Douglas to, ask him if everything's all right, and that's fine. And he says he doesn't need any escort, but he's going to, go for a walk. Go for a walk on the moor. Go to check out some things. And Mr. Douglas starts being very insistent, the moors are very dangerous, sir, around this time of year. I do not think it would be a good idea for you to go out there. And he's, well, I do want to take a look. Christopher is counting on me. And the butler starts to stand pretty tall. He's like, no, I really don't think it's a good idea.
Oh, interesting.
You should keep your activities here to the house.
Okay.
So
interesting. How well deserved.
He's being intimidated.
Yes. Okay, so you have a 5 on your card, right?
Okay, so that's a 5. We're going to see if this resolves with just a roll.
Sure.
Oh, that's a 2.
Ooh, I don't think we even have I guess technically we do have enough resolve that you could do that, but that's almost all of it.
You know what? If it's this is what stops him, I guess. From
going. Interesting.
Yeah, he's out. We have to spend a spirit.
Oh no!
We lose a spirit.
Right, because we failed.
We failed the roll. Yeah. So he's not normally he'd be up for verbal sparring with someone, but there's something particularly intimidating about Mr. Douglas, and he kind of backs down a little. Goes, you have a good point. And to press the issue, Mr. Douglas leans in and goes and says, by the way, you stay away from Miss Enfield.
Oh.
Okay. Really,
you know what's good for you.
Really putting a point on
it. And he walks away.
Interesting.
He walks away.
Okay.
And he feels perturbed and shaken up by what is going on here? There's something bigger going on. But he, realizing that the staff might be watching him, it's particularly Mr. Douglas, he decides to keep his activity to the grounds for the day.
For the time being,
yeah. So that covers...
Our next draw, I believe, should be... Oh, no, I got that wrong. Oh, no, it'll be the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have the 4 of spades, and I believe spades are clues.
I think spades are clues.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Clues, yes.
Okay. Clues provide some insight into the nature of the horror the protagonist faces. This could be an ancient map on the back of a bookcase or a candle that is swiftly snuffed out in an empty room. Clues offer an indication as to what the horror is, where it can be found, or some of its features.
So what are the clues?
Yeah, what are
suggestions? Scratch mark on the outside door, a bizarre howl coming from the moor, an ancient text that is unreadable, an old newspaper clipping about lights above golden wood, and a savage cow on the field.
Interesting. Okay.
So
the first thing that comes to mind is in the immediate aftermath, basically immediately after having the conversation with Mr. Douglas. The butler stares him down and then turns on his heel, seeing that the professor has been cowed a bit, and starts marching away back into the rest of the manor. And as he does, Skeffington notices that he has a series of tattoos of runes behind his ear.
Ooh.
And something...
With his glasses, he's able to see.
That's right. And something keys him into that as something that he's recognized in his studies in the past. And so, not wanting to draw attention to Mr. Douglas, he doesn't inquire or press the issue, but seeing as though the butler has directed him to stay within the grounds, he instead just retires back to the room that he's been assigned, and opens up the bag that he brought with him with some of his texts texts and starts poring through them, seeing if he can figure out where these runes were from in his notes. And that brings him to a myth of a pagan society that existed in the area around Birmingham, of these individuals, these druids, that were ostracized by the other pagan communities of the land for being a bit too severe, a bit too extreme with the ways that they were trying to go about their worship. That they were doing things that were deemed as untoward by the rest of the pagan community, and they didn't want to be associated with them anymore. These individuals that were trying to do things that were perhaps involved blood sacrifices or things of that nature. And so it's just a very insidious sort of messaging that he's finding here. Okay. And that's not, of course, to say that Mr. Douglas is associated with them, but there is something there that has tied them.
Runes and association. Okay. I like that. Now,
I believe, now it's time for the Grey Lady.
Our first Grey Lady.
Our first Grey Lady. So when the Grey Lady comes up, it means we're about to, the tension of the scenario rises. So he's been here for a couple days now.
I'm thinking this is going to happen at night, because it's this is I think this is going to happen at like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
The evening of the second day.
Now they offer suggestions for the tension table.
Let me look at the.
If you'd like to roll on them,
but you can. It's a table, so it's not.
Oh, there's just 3 of them.
There's just 3. So the tension table suggests you witness the fiery eyes of a being in the dark on the moors dart across the landscape.
Oh.
But it's up to you, because you sounded like you had an idea.
No, I actually like this. So here's what I'm thinking. So I think because he knows he doesn't want, okay, I'm going to keep my distance from Mr. Douglas. But the best way to do this is probably go at night.
Wait until the butler's asleep.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So then he decides, but doesn't wander too far because of his shoes and all that. But he goes out. He starts to look around, and then he does as he goes, kind of searching around and to look for clues. He hears something, and then in the dark does witness fiery eyes. Let me read that again. Being in the dark of the moors, dart across the landscape. And
are they low to the ground, or are they high in the air?
Actually, I like being high in the air. Like they are they're huge, and they're like the height of a human, basically, or around the height of a human, I would say. And he panics and realizing no, this can't be.
And he's trying to limp away.
And he thinks he's being chased. I think at some point he thinks he's being chased until he finally closes the door inside the manor.
He makes it back to the manor in time.
And then he turns, and it sounds like it's gone.
Oh, that's really good.
That's very good.
Okay, so with the Grey Lady, we need to check something. Because I think when the Grey Lady is drawn, you either need to lose a spirit or spend a resolve.
That's correct.
So we choose, it has to be one or the other.
I would go with resolve, because we don't have more resolve than we do spirits.
We have 3 spirit and currently 4 resolve left. After all of these intersections.
Because, I mean, despite kind of wanting his friend to die, I think that this does interest him.
So do you want to spend a resolve here?
I think because we have more resolve than we do
at the moment.
True.
At the moment, so.
Now remember, we have 1 Grey Lady on the field. That means all tension roll, everything we roll counts as 1 roll higher. Correct?
Oh God!
1 difficulty higher.
Oh God!
So the beast on the moors has been revealed, or at least what he thinks might be a beast. I like what we're doing here. This is good. Okay, I'm going to go back down to the scenario. There it is. Okay. I guess now we keep the tension track going. What do we have?
Oh God, it is getting tense.
It's a 6 of
spades.
Is
that that's a clue?
It's club.
That's another. Oh
no, it's clubs.
Oh, it's clubs.
Yeah.
Wait.
This other one was clubs.
Is that? It's hard to see. Oh, yeah, sorry, I looked at it weirdly. Wait, that's clubs?
That's clubs.
Oh, then I read the suit.
That's okay. I like that better.
Sure.
Yeah.
When the
4 of spades comes up, it'll be a club.
Yeah.
we'll treat it like that.
Okay.
No, it's because we're getting a lot of repeats. It's unfortunate. So this is 6 of this is another secondary character. A secondary character.
Interferes, nice.
All right. They have suggestions for what secondary characters can do again.
Oh, yeah.
A character assaults you with a weapon. A character blocks your way out. A character attempts to talk you out of going somewhere.
There it is.
A character leaves you lost in the wilderness. A character has apparently been driven to lunacy. Ooh. Okay. Now.
Keep talking. I'm going to use the restroom really quick.
Okay. So, it's the day after the incident on the Moors. At breakfast, Professor Skeff, good old Skeff, he's still shaken out about what he saw, decides to, try and talk to Christopher to get a better idea about what he's been seeing. Because again, they've kind of been spending the day apart, but they will, and he's glad that his friend is making, is making progress. And of course, while all these people are here, they dare not say anything in front of the Lord. The Lord is, of course, very much, well, what have you learned? He's like, well, for various reasons, I couldn't make it out into the moors yesterday, but I did some research. I heard about, and he tries to be kind of cavalier, very discreet about it. He mentions there is a connection to this part of Derbyshire and an old ostracized group of pagan society from many, many years ago that in connection to the area. I don't know if it has anything related to your the sightings, but I would like to know if there's been any ruins or anything or any artifacts uncovered in the area. And Christopher kind of shrugs and mentions that recently an old well off in an old estate was uncovered, recently uncovered while looking for a new source of well water for the nearby. Since he's a lord and he's governing a land, he's talking about some of the people living on his land recently uncovered it, looking to see if there would be a. He says, "All I know is it was uncovered. I don't know who actually did it. I assume it was the. Some of the local villagers, but
sure.
That well was covered up for a reason. The water, from what I understand from tests, is tainted." While this is all being said, all 3 members of the staff happen to be hovering nearby. So once again, this time taking a bold move, Skeffington says that he would actually like to go and investigate the well.
Sure.
And Lord Cunningham says, "Certainly, I will send you with." He looks around and he says, "Well, which of you would like to go?" He says, well, strangely enough, Mr. Douglas looks like he's about to, he doesn't care. He's already got the demeanor. He doesn't much care. I'm going to say Mrs. Bristol says, Miss Enfield starts to say something, lift a finger, but Mrs. Bristol cuts in and goes, "I'll go with him. I'll take him there. It was my job to kind of oversee it, but I don't mind walking him out there. He could use a little help. He's, here you are, sir. Come with me. Helps to be very polite, very escorts him out there."
Sure.
They get out onto the moors. They go out a ways. It takes a while. They're chatting as they're walking. She confides that she's really worried. She hopes she's not supporting his fancies. He says, no, I'm I'm hoping to settle his mania.
Right.
I'm hoping to give him something concrete so he realizes this is all a bunch of, all in his head.
Right.
And the trees being blown down, there must have been a strong wind or something else. I mean, the grounds are very old, and he's saying everything that's very agreeable. And she leads him down some paths, and they cut through a wood. And inexplicably, as they're making their way through the wood toward where he thinks the well is, he's like, "I thought you said the well was on the moor." He says, "Yes, but we're cutting through here to get." And all of a sudden, she gasps and gasps in horror at something, and points. When he looks that direction, he's suddenly pushed over. He lands on the ground. When he turns, he sees Mrs. Bristle just absolutely booking it back the opposite direction.
Oh, wow.
Like she's running in sheer terror. But he doesn't see anything off in the trees. He holds his cane up to defend himself, but nothing comes out. And he starts to wonder, wait a minute, it's I was so caught up in the conversation, I don't know where I am. How do I get back to the house? I mean, we were taking a lot of weird switchbacks and stuff.
Sure.
So I'm going with maybe he was deliberately led into the woods.
Right.
Now this is a 6.
Yes, which is actually a 7.
Yes, 7. So I'm going to spend a point of resolve here.
Okay.
Oh boy.
we don't have any way to get these back. Right?
No.
Okay.
And I'm afraid there's only 2 left.
Oh
Okey-dokey.
god.
But if we can resolve this, hopefully he can make it out of there okay.
So you got +2.
That's only a 5. So unfortunately we lose the spirit.
Okie dokie.
I'm going to say that he tries to, he's heart pounding. He picks himself up. He starts limping down the road or through this narrow forest trail. But he gets easily turned around by the trees, and the environment becomes more oppressive, especially as a fog starts to linger through. He thinks he hears something moving through the trees.
I like this fact he's now stuck in the woods, and that's where he
just stays stuck in the woods, and soon night begins to fall, and he still can't find his way out. He's been thoroughly turned around. He thought he knew he was paying attention to the path.
Sure.
But somehow Mrs. Bristle seems to have led him astray. And now he's stuck there. So I would pass it to you and say that's where we're going to leave him for now.
Okay, he's lost.
He's lost in the woods, and the sun is setting.
We have the 6 of diamonds.
Now, diamond.
Environmental, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Diamond is an environmental obstacle.
Okay.
So, the environmental obstacles, as listed before, were here.
Right. Okay.
Which is now perfect because you're stuck in the
You're
woods.
stuck in the woods. Okay. So we're going to say the sun's starting to set. The woods are dark. They are damp with the moor. The loamy ground underfoot is sucking and sticking to his shoes. And he's clinging to that cane as a form of support as he's trying his best to try and retrace his steps. But, of course, with the darkness coming on, even that becomes more difficult. But there's something more to it, because he's grown up in areas around here. Mm-hmm. So he's familiar with the area, and there's something that seems even more oppressive about the darkness than normal. And he's trying very hard not to project his own insecurities in the moment, and was concerned about his own oncoming frailty and his own mortality. But he could swear that there's something about the environment here that is trying to stop him from being able to properly perceive it. And that's what we'll make the check against, to see whether or not he can overcome that.
All right, this is a 7.
It is. I think we should save our resolve.
We're just going to try and do a flat roll.
Just try to do a flat roll. We need to get a 7 or higher. We'll just see how it goes. That is a 1.
Oh, no.
So
we're down to 1 spirit.
We're down to 1 spirit. So our unfortunate professor is unable to find his way back to the path that the maid had brought him on. And he is left to his own devices as the sun fully sets and night overtakes the forest and the moor. And he hears the sound of the howling echoing through the trees.
Oh, God.
Oh, this is great.
We got,
4 of... This is spades. So
this is the club now.
So we're going to treat this as...
Well, it's going to still be a 4. Well,
it'll still be a 4.
Yeah, they're still 4s. Yeah, actually, they're both 4s, so you can switch it.
4s. Yeah, I just mixed up.
Yeah, earlier we talked about the next time a 4 came up in spades, we were going to treat it as spade. Or 4 came up as club, we were going to treat it as club. Yeah. So this is, once again, secondary character obstacles.
Oh, God.
Why?
It's not looking good for Skeffington.
He's definitely regretting having come
to this.
That he was so easily stymied by that butler.
To the Cunningham manor.
Alright, so you have currently the 4, so this is a secondary character presents an obstacle.
Okay, so he's trapped in the woods right now, and he's hearing howling.
It doesn't have to be one of the secondary characters we've established earlier either. It could be anything.
No, but I'm trying to think of something. Let's see. Okay. I kind of like this idea that we don't know who, like, he hears someone, so he's trying to run away, but then he hears, because I think he hears a scream and panics because he realizes it's a feminine scream, and I think it sounds like Mrs. Enfield. And now he's like, oh shit, do I go back to save, can I go back to save her? I should go back to save her. I can't find a way out of here. I don't know.
No, that's good. I like that.
Good,
the sound, best case scenario, the sound of a scream means that he is going towards someone who is human.
Yes. And then that's...
If he hears a human scream, he could either he can help or he can find someone who can...
Help
him. So that's his... So it's like...
He changes his direction and starts hobbling toward the scream.
Yes. So it's a 4.
It was a 4, which is a 5 because of the Grey Lady.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah, so... Do you want to spend any resolve tokens?
I'm going to wait, just in case.
Okay, because you always spend it after.
Yeah.
Better than 50%.
Yep.
That's a 5.
You got it.
We're good.
So, yeah, I think he follows the scream, and then actually does run into Mrs. Enfield.
Oh,
or Miss Enfield.
Miss Enfield.
And luckily, since I rolled she's fine, but she's like, we've been looking for you. Did you hear it too? And he's like, hear what? And she's like, the howl. And he's like, yes, I heard it too. And she's like, you shouldn't be here. We need to go back. And actually helps lead him out. So starts to help lead him out of the woods. But she's like now also panicking.
Right.
But she's like,
and what in the world is she doing there?
Lord Cunningham, you never returned, and Miss Bristol said that you had gone missing.
Obvious lie.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's like, missing. And she's like, yes. Suddenly she turned and you were gone. And when she tried looking for you, couldn't find you anywhere, and then came back to let us know.
Oh, I like that. Oh, now the plot thickens.
And then she came out, heard the howl as well, and she realized we can't be here. And she actually has holding a lantern, and that helps. Yeah.
Nice. So here's young Miss Enfield leading him back up to the house.
Yeah.
Did they make it back to the house?
I'm gonna leave that up to you.
Okay. Let's see what the next card tells us. The next card is a 5 of spades. So it's a clue.
It is a clue.
Okay. So, they do make it back to the house. They make it back just fine. They actually make it back surprisingly well. And none of the other staff are there to but the other staff are there to receive them. Mr. Douglas, Mrs. Bristle, and Lord Cunningham are all there when they come in.
Does he say anything about Mrs. Bristle? Or?
He chooses, like, Mrs. Bristle immediately acts relieved, like she bursts into tears. She's like, I was so worried about you. And he almost says something. He almost does. But he sees Mr. Douglas looking at him, giving him a look. And he steps really defensively close to Miss Enfield. And he goes on to he immediately changes his story. He says, yes, forgive me, doddering old man. But I do appreciate that Miss Enfield very bravely came and found me. I owe her my life. And Miss Enfield actually kind of blushes and smiles, but otherwise she's, I was just doing my duty. Lord Cunningham beams at her, and even Mr. Douglas kind of like, he looks, he looks like he might kind of appreciate the comment, but it's hard to read everything going on.
Certainly.
Mrs. Bristle keeps up the just general a good heavens relief, and, well, we've all had quite an evening. Let's go to bed. And, you look at the state of your shoes, and he goes, oh my, I'll have to take care of that. And Miss Enfield offers to take the shoes and fix them up and put them to bed, and he goes, okay, well, that's fine. So they do that. The next morning, when having a hard time sleeping because of all of this, the professor goes through his notes, but he still hasn't found any additional clues yet, anything that's super helpful. But he awakens in the morning to the sound of, even through the house, he can hear muted arguing. He goes downstairs and peers down into the great hall, only to see that Lord Cunningham and Mr. Douglas are facing down through the open door a group of farmers. Group of lay people.
Oh, interesting.
And they're ranting at them about something has to be done about the wild animal.
Oh.
Several cows were killed the night before, found savaged in their fields. And one of them, says, you're in charge. You need to get hunters here. You need to get traps laid out. This can't be, that we've lost, 5 head of cattle. Just in a single night, and several others broke out of their pens and ran, and something needs to be done. Lord Cunningham is trying to calm them down, but he clearly seems on edge. Mm-hmm. When Mr. Douglas looks up, spots Professor Skeffington on the stairs watching. They make eye contact for a moment, and again that look of severity passes between them, and the professor wisely decides to kind of hobble on and resolves that he's going to look into the matter a little more closely. Maybe these farmers will know something, but he wants to find a way to get Christopher alone. But now he's got a lead.
Interesting.
Now the beast is not just a figment. Now something is actually killing livestock.
Very interesting.
Oh no.
Like that. Okay.
I think we have one more card before the Grey Lady.
Before the next lady.
And it's...
Our next card is the 7 of Clubs.
Oh, this is another character obstruction.
Oh, God.
This is another character obstruction.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All right.
Goodness gracious.
I know. You can choose to hold the card if you want to do something.
Since we've
different. We have that option.
I think you're only supposed to do that if you get the 2 suits in a row.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Checking where we're at on the recording.
Yeah, so 7 of Clubs, another secondary character obstruction. Well,
I realize I've been padding these a lot, so
no, it's
these
okay.
need to be really padded too.
It's okay. The professor, after seeing Lord Cunningham and Mr. Douglas kind of receiving the farmers, he's decided to sort of leave things be. He knows that there is a tension between he and Mr. Douglas. He's very suspicious of him and Mrs. Bristle, the housekeeper. And so there's the suspicion there that perhaps they are working together. And that Ms. Enfield is the one who, seeing as though she's the one who keeps trying to talk to him and is being interrupted. With this clue that the farmers, the lay people on the land, are believing that there is something out there, and not being able to trust the other 2 more senior members of the household, the professor does his level best to try and become as unobtrusive as possible in a manner to be able to pull Ms. Enfield aside, to be able to have a private moment with her and to try and get some idea from her if there's something going on that she knows that the others don't want him to know.
Okay.
And so maybe we'll say that the obstacle that he needs to overcome with that is trying to facilitate the ability to do that.
I like that. That's good. So he's trying to find a way to discreetly throughout the day
find a private moment with her to pull her aside to be able to ask her what's going on.
Oh,
I think the difficulty is very well represented here because now he's dodging the other 2 members of the house staff.
Indeed, yeah, very enclosed quarters in a place that he is unfamiliar with. So I think we definitely need to spend at least one resolve here.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be difficulty 8.
Yeah, oh my god.
This could be a big reveal here.
It could be a big reveal, and it seems like almost a close to a last gasp to his own sense of coming out of the situation unscathed. Because he's right on the last brink of his spirit.
Right. His night in the woods and the encounter on the moor.
But
really
like,
didn't help.
if we put this gray lady down, doesn't the spirit go away?
Well, we either spend a resolve or a spirit.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
He is screwed.
So
This is an important point, though.
important point. So we're looking for an 8, and I have +2 on my roll.
Okay.
On. 7!
7 takes it to a 9. Excellent.
All right.
So, the professor is able to find a private moment as he has been, discreetly tailing Ms. Enfield around the estate and pulls her aside into, we'll say, Lord Cunningham's study.
Oh, perfect.
That has been left untouched since the man became ailing. And is able to pull her aside into this room with, leather-bound furniture and oak bookshelves, the smell of that musty paper and the leather and the cigar smoke that still kind of clings to the walls.
Nice.
And pulls her aside and, trying to bite back the frantic energy that has compelled him to do this, impresses upon her that if there's anything that she knows about Mr. Douglas or Mrs. Bristle or what is happening on the moors, that she must tell him so that he can have a chance to do something to help. And Ms. Enfield relays to him through a bundle of nerves that the butler and the housekeeper have been doing their best to ensure that Ms. Enfield doesn't come anywhere near the Lord. That previously, as she had been a serving girl in the house, part of her duties would be to bring the Lord his meals. But that Mrs. Bristle had refused her that duty and started taking that on herself. And that Mr. Douglas has taken run of the household. She also relays to the professor that although Mrs. Bristle has been here for several years, Mr. Douglas is a new acquisition to the household.
Oh.
And that he has always served as a bit too brutish to what she would have believed to be Mr. Cunningham's true desires for how he would run his household. But considering that his ailment was on set around the same time as when Mr. Douglas was brought onto the staff, he was unable to make any lasting complaints about it. They were always sort of downplayed by Mrs. Bristle and waved off by the nature of his ailment. She doesn't know what's happening out on the moor. She knows that she's heard the beast, and she knows that there must be something happening, considering that the other people who live in the nearby area are obviously witnessing or seeing at least the wake of the passing of this, whatever this creature is. But she is afraid to go out, and she feels trapped here in the estate because of the way that Mr. Douglas and Mrs. Bristle are running the household, and is only hoping that she can do something to try and bring Lord Cunningham back to his spirits in order to try and correct things before something goes terribly wrong. Our good professor feels that his suspicions have been confirmed in that the butler and the housekeeper are not working for the betterment of the house, but more likely the betterment of themselves in some capacity. But is unsure what that could mean, and feels as though he needs to desperately speak to Lord Cunningham and try to get through his fugue in order to get to the root of what's going on.
Right. Both, if I may.
Yes.
Because both Miss Enfield and Lord Cunningham brought up the old well.
That's right.
Yes.
She doesn't. I would like to surmise that he actually said, "I don't know anything about it. I just know what Lord Cunningham has said."
Sure. Yes.
That there was an old well that was recently opened,
Right.
and that the water was apparently tainted, so they didn't do anything with it.
Right.
But the incidents didn't start happening until after.
That's right.
took
Until
place.
after the well was open.
Right. And I think we're slowly starting to establish a timeline here.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Do we think that the well was opened before or after Mr. Douglas was brought on?
I want to say after Mr. Douglas was brought on.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's say after Mr. Douglas was brought on. That seems good. Maybe even not that long after.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Okay.
All right, Great Lady time.
Great lady time. So I like this. That I think one of the things he decides to do is thinking, oh, clearly Mrs. Bristol has said, oh, she's been sitting by Lord Cunningham's bed every night. That maybe her bedroom is open to check and maybe he can find clues.
Ooh.
Excellent.
So he goes at night and he's about to go check. First of all, check to make sure Lord Cunningham is in his room or like she's there with him. But then when he opens the door, he's not in his room.
Uh-oh.
It's late at night. He's not in his room, and neither is Mrs. Bristol.
Oh. Ooh, dear.
Neither of them are there. His bed looks untouched,
Wow. Okay.
and like it's been made and unmade, and but there is a window open. His window is open, so he's like, what is going on? So that's when he goes to Mrs. Bristol's room and then sees that she's not there either.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
And realizes, oh my god, what is going on? She's not here, he's not here. And I think that's when he begins to realize something's about to go down.
Yeah.
And I think this is when... Okay. I'm going to say that, realizing this, he goes to Miss Enfield's room, bangs on her door, and she half awakens, and she's like, and he's like, do you know what the Lord Cunningham's not in his room? And she's like, what do you mean? He's not there. And he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, do you know where the well is? The well? The well. I think he's by the well. And she's like, I mean, yes. And then it's like, take me to the well. I don't think and basically begs her to take him to the well.
Very cool.
So,
Spirit or resolve?
well, if a spirit's gone, then he's dead.
He's not
doomed.
necessarily dead.
Not dead.
Just
It's
doomed.
He'll meet some sort of terrible fate.
Yes.
So, I mean, I want that sort of hope. I doubt it's going
Certainly.
to happen, but let's...
He won't admit it except for his private journals.
now
And in the
here's-
back of his mind, he thinks, if Christopher just disappears, how is that going to prove the taunting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's like...
She's like,
Yeah.
it was one thing to get this resolved, and now I'm caught up in all this because I think something suspicious is going on.
Yeah.
But
He
now...
has to be dead, not missing.
If this were written down, I would almost have the taunting thing be a slow but steady reveal.
Sure.
And to the point where at this point he's like, I need him to be alive. And then
Certainly.
I need him to be alive. I need to know where he is.
Well, actually, do we just want him to be doomed? Do we just accept his doomed fate?
I'm willing to spend... Well, I don't know. It's up to you.
Or-
You-
and then-
This is your decision.
I know, that's
Yeah.
it. And then have the potential for him to do... Well, you know what? Let's have hope. Let's get rid of the resolve.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
No, I think that's a very resolved moment. He's like, I think we need to investigate this well.
Yes. And then they're just
like it.
hope for the
All
spirit.
right.
So
So
now...
this is the night.
This is the night.
Okay.
Shit's going down now.
Okay, ready to reveal the next card?
Next card.
Six of Hearts. Now, this is not a card we spend...
We haven't had a
We
heart
haven't
yet.
had a heart yet.
Heart is... I think we're going to get a bunch of these at once.
No!
We are.
Oh my god!
A secondary character is injured.
Oh no!
Secondary character harmed cards denote a scene where a character other than the protagonist is harmed physically or otherwise. Scenarios don't have a list of story elements for this. Players should look at the list of characters and the situation to determine how a secondary character might come to harm. They could be injured accidentally or be attacked by a lurking horde.
Oh God, Miss Enfield! Miss Enfield!
Okay.
No.
We'll
Okay.
see. Okay.
He's begging Miss Enfield to take him to the well. And she she's almost looks determined to do it. They hear a howl off in the distance.
Oh shit.
They both blanch noticeably. She says, "We can't do this at night. We can't do this at night. It's too dangerous. We have to try and sneak off in the morning. We'll find a way to make an excuse. But we have to wait till daylight. It's too dangerous." And realizing the wisdom in this, the professor agrees. But he can't sleep that night. He just paces his room, thinks about it. In the morning, he's dog tired, but he's been steady. He's building his nerves to do this. He's starting to wonder if this whole thing is worth it too. Maybe he should get out while the getting's good. But he's come too far. He hates to admit it, but he does worry about his friend Christopher. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the agreement. But there is that part of him that says, if he just vanishes from the face of the earth, there's no way this will all get resolved. He's been looking at this place. He's been eyeballing it a little bit since he's been here. A small, steady voice in the back of his head has been saying, someday this might be yours.
Oh no. Oh my God.
He's trying to ignore it. He's trying to think he's a better person, but he's been through too much. He doesn't have enough for his retirement. He knows that the university is going to turn him out on his ear soon enough. He needs this. But he resolves that no matter what happens, he's doing it for the right reasons. It is for the right reasons.
Sure.
Ultimately for the right reasons. He doesn't have a
Sure it is.
He's going downstairs, to get ready for breakfast. He's going to give the news to... He's planning on giving the news to... see if everybody else in the house is panicked about Lord Cunningham being missing as well. Because so far he hasn't heard anything much. The servants haven't been alerted. It's weirdly quiet. Until he hears a crash and a scream from the kitchen. He doubles it as quick as he can to get there. When he arrives, he finds Mrs. Bristle doting over a weeping Miss Enfield, who's got a large and bloody gash on her leg.
Oh.
And Mrs. Bristle is scolding her, saying, "Stupid girl, how could you break things like that?
Oh, okay.
You've hurt yourself. Look at this." And she's shaking her head and going, "I don't know how any of this happened." She's, in tears, but it's like, that was the master's good. Where is he anyway? That kind of thing. And Miss Enfield looks up to see the professor standing in the doorway, as does Mrs. Bristle. Mrs. Bristle's like, "I don't know what's going on here, but my foolish maid here, serving girl, she's in no position to help anyone right now. She is, and indeed, it's a bad wound. It's like, I'm going to have to summon a doctor. We're going to need to get her patched up before gangrene sets in or something else. These damp conditions." And she's fussing and bustling and moving all around. And the professor thinks to ask, "Well, where's Mr. Douglas?" And Miss Bristol says, "Oh, she's out looking for Lord Cunningham. This house is in disarray, and I'm the only one in charge now. And look what happens here. I think it best that you leave for now." And he says, he looks at Miss Enfield sadly and says, "All right."
So what are you rolling for?
We don't have to roll for this one.
Oh!
It just happened.
It just happened.
He's lost his guide.
Yes.
Oh, damn.
He's lost his guide because now she's being, not only is she injured under, and he can't say anything to her because she's being constantly hovered over now.
Certainly. Yeah. And I imagine in some regard she can't say anything.
There is something like that. The gash on her leg seems too suspicious to have just been an accident.
Sure.
And I think the look he gets from Miss Enfield says that.
Sure.
What he's told by Mrs. Bristle is that she dropped a piece of, like a plate or something, and it shattered and a piece got embedded in her leg.
Right. Gosh.
He doesn't believe that for a second.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Our next prompt is the 5 of Hearts.
Another secondary character gets injured.
I'll stick with it. I think that's okay.
Okay. I mean, the stakes are rising here.
And they are. Indeed they are. So the professor steps back, allowing Mrs. Bristle to continue doting over Miss Enfield. Not wanting to draw continued attention to himself, especially because he doesn't actually know where Mr. Douglas is. But despite that voice that was compelling him to do something somewhat selfish, perhaps, in trying to motivate him to solve this so that he can benefit from it, he is not a man without morality.
Right.
And he knows that whatever has transpired here, Ms. Enfield was uninvolved, or was at best a unwitting participant. That is the vibe that he's gotten from her. Mm-hmm. And so, because of this, he feels compelled in order to ensure her safety. And the only way that he can think to do that is to try and find a way to extricate her from Mrs. Bristle's clutches. Ooh. Now,
oh my God.
He is not a man who is to which violence is unknown.
Oh
He served in a war.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh my God.
But he never reveled in the killing that was necessary. It was always a duty. But the situation that he has found himself in now feels to him as though there is a duty that has been put upon him in order to protect an innocent and to try and get to the bottom of what is going on. He does not intend necessarily to kill Mrs. Bristle, but he needs to find a way to be able to remove her as the continued obstacle that she has presented herself as.
Oh my God, I think I know where you're going with this. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, this is good. All right. He knows, having met Lord Cunningham while they served together, that the Lord must have a weapon somewhere in the house. And so goes back up to the study where he had met with Ms. Enfield previously and hobbles in on his cane, plopping himself down in the office chair behind the big mahogany desk and starts rifling through the drawers until he can find Lord Cunningham's revolver.
Oh my fucking God.
He opens the chamber and sees that it is unloaded. He searches through the drawers. He sees no rounds. But he has a weapon. And he thinks at best that he can do is potentially intimidate Mrs. Bristle in a position to get her out of the way for the time being. So he slams the chamber back into place, steadies his gait and his shoulders, and goes marching back down the stairs to try and find the women.
Oh my God.
He heads into the kitchen and sees the pool of blood still left on the tiles, but that the women have left. But he can hear movement coming from the drawing room. And so follows the sounds, trying to be as stealthy as he can, and overhears Mrs. Bristle continuing to berate Miss Enfield about, first, her clumsiness, but in their supposed secrecy, also hears her berating her for being meddling and for siding against them.
Oh no.
And Ms. Enfield lets out a yelp as the professor inches into the doorway and sees Miss Bristle tightening a bandage much too tight over her leg. Ooh. And staring daggers into the eyes of Ms. Enfield. And seeing her continue to do harm to this woman, the professor steps into the doorway fully, raising Lord Cunningham's revolver and leveling it at Mrs. Bristle. The housekeeper snaps her eyes up to the doorway, her pupils dilating, eyes going wide at the sight of a weapon, and steps back away from Ms. Enfield, raising her hands in admonishment. The professor orders Ms. Enfield to come to him out of the room. Stepping just into the threshold, holding the revolver steady at Mrs. Bristle, and asks Ms. Enfield to go and fetch the keys so that they can lock her in the drawing room to keep her secure and away. Ms. Enfield runs off to go and fetch the keys. And when they have that moment of isolation, you can see the last vestiges of the mask that Mrs. Bristle held fall away, and a sneer rising across her lips. You come here, and you try to meddle with things you do not understand. The Black Beast will save us all, and you will be first to the slaughter.
Oh!
The professor feels the chill crawl up the back of his neck, but doesn't respond, merely waiting until Ms. Enfield returns hurriedly with the master key, and he steps back out of the room, allowing Ms. Enfield to slam the door shut and lock Mrs. Bristle inside. And immediately there is a banging on the door as Mrs. Bristle comes forward, hoping to force her way out, shouting and screeching at the top of her lungs. But the professor turns back to Miss Enfield, gauging the wound on her leg, seeing that it has been bound securely, perhaps too tightly, but securely, and asks if she can make her way with him out of here. And Miss Enfield takes one blanched look back at the door and nods hurriedly. And the two of them turn and start hurrying their way out the door, heading out into the moors to go looking for Lord Cunningham.
They're both hobbling.
There's both of them hobbling. Yes.
Right.
Oh my god.
Oh god, here we go.
Another secondary character is injured. I mean, do you want to hold that
You could hold
card
that.
and pull it
Yeah, let's see if
Okay.
it, what's the next one? Oh!
Okay.
That's a clue.
That's a clue.
A clue. All right.
I'll hold that one.
Oh, you know what, actually? So, yeah, they start to hobble. Unfortunately, because of how slow they are, it does get to... and maybe just because of how the woods are, it does feel like it gets darker. Mm-hmm. The closer they get towards the well. He gets towards the well, but notices Lord Cunningham's clothes, but they're, tattered by the well. So, I can't remember. Do I roll...
You don't have to roll for this.
Oh,
You just
okay.
get to tell us what the
Is this...
clue
Actually, there's no rules after this, I think.
Potentially not.
Because that's
haven't really been counting the cards.
I think... Because all that's left is the clues.
We roll on
And
diamonds and we roll on clubs.
Yeah.
Yep.
All there is left is... yeah. Oh my god, we actually could survive this!
Maybe.
Oh my god.
Maybe.
You know what? That's a clue. That there's tattered clothes by the...
Find Lord
I feel like we're
Cunningham's
at the,
tattered clothes near the old well.
What is the... Where is the well? What does it look like?
The old well, they get deep in the woods, and the old well feels like it's in this, clearing that is just surrounded by trees, almost like a fairy clearing in a weird way. There's stones surrounding it, and moss, and but also it's both beautiful but also kind of eerie because there's also lots of mushrooms and a bit of smell decay, and vines are covering this well. It looks like, for the most part, you think it's it just looks like an old well. There's nothing really special about it. It's with stones, and there's a bucket sitting on the edge. He hasn't looked inside it yet, or they haven't looked inside it yet, and I want to leave that to you. But he does see this. They do see the tattered clothing of Lord Cunningham right by the well.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay, I like that.
If I can. When you say tattered, what condition is the clothing in?
It looks like it's been torn, ripped to pieces. And it's
Okay.
clearly, this is they didn't wear smoking jackets, but it's been the
Like a brocade vest or something?
brocade vest and pants and button-up shirt. Like, it is there and it's ripped to shreds.
Very interesting.
Nice. Okay. So that leaves the held card. Another secondary character is injured.
Indeed.
Again. So, having reached the well and finding this evidence, the professor feels feels a sense of cold creep into his veins. Now, he's almost afraid to look into the well. He wonders what has happened. He goes in for a closer look at the state of the clothing. And as he peers down at them, he wonders what caused this. But he starts to move toward the well. He looks down into it, and he just sees this gaping maw of darkness leading down. He thinks he can kind of just barely see the faintest sliver, like the impression of water, down at the bottom. But the smell that hits him is just this acrid smell of decay and loam and
So it's
rot.
It's not just like the mushrooms and the earth. It's actually there's something in the well.
There's something in the well. And he thinks for a moment as he peers down at it, he thinks he can see, even among the moss and bracken stones, like freshly carved runes in some of the bricks, almost in specific places. But he doesn't have a very good chance to get a look at it when suddenly he is struck from behind. He is dealt a blow that knocks the wind out of him, but doesn't make him lose consciousness. But with his ears ringing, he hits the ground, and he looks up and has the wherewithal, the split second, to raise his cane before the metal pipe comes down on him again. It's Mr. Douglas. And he is, any pretense, much like Mrs. Bristle, has fallen away. He's got a scowl on his face, and he's raising his weapon, and he's not saying anything, but he has got this weapon, and he's coming at, again and again, the pipe comes down. This almost looked like it was, but let's make it a wrench. I think a wrench is good.
Wrench work.
He's got a wrench, and he's bringing it down again and again, and the professor keeps parrying it, but he's on the ground. He's moving backward as this huge man is just bearing down on him. He tries to reach for the revolver that he carried with him in order to maybe at least try and point it at him and intimidate him, but he lost it somewhere in the fall. And he croaks out, almost begging to Mr. Douglas not to do this, but Mr. Douglas is not saying anything. Mr. Douglas just seems cold and determined to end his life. He finally, a blow comes down that shatters the cane. It's split in two.
Oh!
It practically falls apart in his hands, and with a look of triumph, he raises it one more time, and suddenly he stiffens and falls. Miss Enfield is standing behind him, holding the revolver in her hand like a cudgel, having just struck him in the back of the head.
Nice.
Excellent.
Mr. Douglas lies there unconscious. Miss Enfield looks at her shaking hand and lets the revolver fall from it. She looks at the professor. The professor looks at her. He quickly goes over and to the fallen Mr. Douglas, picks up the wrench that he had, looks him over, realizes his clothes have been stained with blood. That he's got a sheath on his side with a ritualistic-looking knife attached to it, also stained with blood. And he pushes the man's hair back in order to get a better look at the runes above the goose egg forming on the back of his head, to get a better look at the runes. And he realizes with some clarity that he thinks he recognizes some of the runes on his neck from some of the runes in the well.
Oh.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Interesting. What do we got next?
Everything's coming more thick and fast instead of being over the
that's
course of
what I
days at
figured.
this point.
4 of hearts. You know what?
One more.
I'm gonna hold this one.
Ooh, okay.
We'll leave that one. Which brings us then the 7 of spades.
One more clue.
One more clue.
One more clue.
One more clue. So he's recognized the runes, or at least likened the runes on the back of Mr. Douglas's head
To the ones
that he saw at the bottom of the well.
Yes.
From what he can tell from this strange oblique angle, they seem one and the same. But this ritualistic dagger that Mr. Douglas was carrying, as he retrieves it from Mr. Douglas's belt and draws it from its sheath, the glinting metal catching what little rays of light are coming through the gloam of the Moor, glints off a different sequence of runes etched into the blade.
Ooh.
Reflecting back onto his face to the perspective of Ms. Enfield. And he dives back into his memory, and finally something clicks. Seeing the blade, seeing the rune, seeing the place, a physical place where they had been carved, etched into a person, he realizes that the runes there were a binding ritual. That the ones placed on the stones of the well were intended to keep something in. And the runes carved onto the back, or tattooed onto the back of Mr. Douglas's head, indicate that he was meant to be a guardian for this place. That he was meant to be the warden. He was meant to keep whatever was here in. And as a chill shivers down his body, our professor realizes that his supposition that Mr. Douglas and Mrs. Bristle were here to facilitate whatever was happening with this dark beast ravaging through the countryside, and that their efforts to try and keep people from uncovering the truth more than likely were wrong. That they were doing this to try and find whatever this creature was and to put it back into its prison.
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Well, and the dawning realization of his misunderstanding of the situation, being driven to these means because of that voice in the back of his head saying that there was something that he could gain from this, if only he could get through to Mr. Cunning or Lord Cunningham and get him away from his staff that were seemingly trying to keep him enthralled, have left now one of these guardians locked away and another unconscious.
Yeah.
And no longer able to do whatever task they were sent here to do. That they were only trying to stop him from meddling and interfering because they were trying to stop whatever sacrifice the Black Beast would demand. And only they, having the knowledge of what these rituals would have entailed, knew what they needed to do in order to make that happen. But now he has interrupted it. And there's this sense of dread that washes over him, holding that blade in trembling hands as he turns to look at Ms. Enfield.
Okay, another person is...
A secondary character.
So you said Miss Enfield dropped the gun, or...
Yes.
Okay. He turns to Miss Enfield and says, "We've made a mistake." And she's like, What do you mean? And he says, "We have to go back." And she's like, "What do you mean go back?" They weren't trying to stop this beast. They were trying to protect us from this beast. I gotta unlock Mrs. Bristle from the house. We gotta do something. We can't stay here. And suddenly, a knife is pointed to the back, to his back, and she says, "I can't let you do that."
There it is.
He says, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Mrs. Bristle's right. The Black Beast will have his revenge, and he is coming. We need a sacrifice, and you're the clear person for it." And she tucks her hair behind her ear and has runes, slightly different though from what there are there. But what is this Black Beast? Where does it come from? And she's looking at him, basically telling him, "You were the perfect one. You don't think Lord Cunningham told us about that taunting thing? About the..."
Oh, the Lord is in on it. Oh my.
It's like, that he didn't tell me about that. There isn't money involved. It all has come together. Once Black Beast kills you, then Lord Cunningham and I will run away together with the money, and then all of a sudden, a paw comes from the darkness and then snatches her back.
Oh, there it is!
And she screams. The beast approaches, and I'm going to let you describe the beast, but the one thing they notice is there are pieces of the cloth that are on Lord Cunningham's cloth on the beast, but also his eyes look very similar to Lord Cunningham's.
Yeah!
Yes, I was hoping you'd go there.
I wanted him. I really wanted him to be it. So.
Oh, that's
and that leaves us with our final Gray Lady, which I do believe says
a black beast with saucer eyes confronts you in the dark.
And
now,
those saucer
we have to spend one spirit.
And we're completely depleted of all spirit and resolve.
No!
So,
which means
if you have 0 spirit remaining, your last entry details your thoughts after fleeing the beast on the moor. You are raving. Your world has been turned upside down. You're convinced that someone in the manor or the area is responsible for the beast. You will find them and put an end to... What? That's it?
I mean...
We'll do it.
Suggestion.
No, that's a suggestion. We'll do what we want.
There is no final entry.
Ah.
Because here's the thing. Mm-hmm. The creature, which is some strange combination, it bends down to his level. Something like some hideous long-legged dog or wolf, but with the way its limbs move, it almost moves like a spider. It's too gangly, too wrong, and those 2 saucer eyes come and peer right and are reflected in the professor's glasses. The thing's lips pull back into almost like a smile as a long slavering tongue comes out of the mouth.
So Lord Cunningham is a bastard.
The thing licks its jowls. And the professor has a moment to make that realization and mutter the word, Christopher? Before the thing gives out something akin to a laugh, opens its jaws, and... the end.
So basically, Lord Cunningham has basically got this horrifying beast within him because of the opening of that, and he's been basically convincing
the dreams he's been having. I think the visions are him thinking the creature.
Yeah,
it's the creature trying to take over. If I was going to expand this a little bit, I didn't really have a good opportunity to do this, but if there was that moment where you have like a cinematic flashback, you would see Miss Enfield serving him some of the well water.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. There was a transformation.
And then she's flirting with him.
Yeah.
And she's trying to basically, because he had told her about his friend and all that, and it's like, well, what if we run away together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
No, this was, oh my gosh, y'all, this was great.
This was awesome.
That was so much fun. Oh my gosh. Look at our story track.
Ah, man.
It was very interesting that we got all of the challenge up front, and then it was just revelation after revelation.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah.
That was very cool. And it managed to get cohesive. Like, we actually managed to keep it cohesive. I was almost worried, like, that's why I was like, well, and I was like, no,
I think we were all on the same page, like, that, eventually that Lord Cunningham was...
I wanted Lord Cunningham to be the creature.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I figured we can't have, since the spirit's gone, we can't have the professor live.
Yeah.
So the
I think
beast...
that seems fair.
I suppose if I was to describe it a little differently, I would say that this thing emerges from the darkness and it's got, like, fresh blood on its face, because it just snapped down Miss Enfield.
Yeah.
And now it's about to eat.
And Mrs. Bristol...
Although, alternative ending could be it just looks at him, gives a laugh, and then, like, walks away. But, this is the Tontine.
Yeah.
The Tontine... Now we really only do have one survivor.
There it is.
It may be the Black Beast.
Except for Mrs. Bristol, who's stuck in the...
Mrs. Bristol is our... You know what? A scene afterward shows Miss Bristol escaping, finally getting out of the place. And she looks into the distance and she sees the creature looking at her across the moor. And for a moment she looks crestfallen, but then she tightens her fist. She's like, well, we have a job to do. Mm-hmm. There it is. So the story is then, we realize the twist ending is that the story is from now Mrs. Bristol's perspective.
Mrs. Bristol is our final girl!
Final girl! So important.
Woo! Oh, that was so much fun. Hey, thank you both for being willing to do this silly RPG with me.
Thank you for facilitating it. It was a lot of fun.
Happy to. I hope our listeners enjoyed that. This might be a bit of a long episode, but it'll be shorter in editing. But
yeah.
Hey, if you enjoyed what you heard here, and hey, if you want to hear us actually try out more RPGs in the future, like more narrative, little weird narrative things, we're open to that prospect. This has been a really fun exercise. If you want to hear more of this show, creativehorror.com is where you find the podcast if you're not already subscribed to it. And if you don't, that's fine. We're also available on YouTube at Creative Horror. We are always happy, smash that like button, all that good stuff. If you want to support the show and give us a little bit of monetary backup, patreon.com/Creative Horror is where you go. We will have all extra stuff here, including the many, many episodes of Choice Drags at any dollar level. You can get your access to those. We got a little bit of a fun one going over here, which talks a little bit about Nick's first experience at Disneyland.
That's right.
Where we took him, yesterday of recording this, which was crazy. And, a little bit goes a long way. Always happy to have people aboard. And, Nick, is there anywhere people can find you or anything you'd like to plug?
No, I don't have anything creatively on the go at the moment. Some music potentially in the future, but I'll let you know when that comes to fruition.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is there anything else I should mention?
The upcoming contest, we're still, we have our pulp contest, so information will be in the description below. Check that out.
Exactly. This may not be a pulp story, but we decided, hey, another writing style seems pretty fitting. A little bit of gothic. I love it. Oh, boy. Well, now I'm going to be up all night thinking about the horrifying spider-like wolf beast with fiery eyes that is haunting the haunting garden.
Ooh.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.